What's happening? Welcome back to Midnight Entertainment, official X Midnight here. Today we have a very special Moze build for you indeed. This is something we've been cooking up for the past few weeks, and now we finally have the chance to give this build right over to you guys to try out. We are of course calling this one the almighty Ionized Cup. This build in particular combines a selection of our best builds on our channel to date, being the Cup Legionnaire and the Raging Nukem. I'm extremely happy with how this build turned out, can't wait to share it in this video. There are quite a few differences between those builds that we would like to go through. In particular, we have an extremely interesting interaction going on with a few pieces of gear that we chose that basically makes Moze an indestructible tank. With this build, you can throw down with literally any enemy in any overwhelming situation that Borderlands 3 can possibly offer. Before we get started, if you like what you see or you want to be part of the Midnight Army, hit us with a wee subscribe as it would help the channel out unbelievably. Give it a wee like, hit the bell so you can get notified of when we bring out brand new content, and of course above anything else, hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. So with this build we decided to throw in the protective qualities from our own Cup Legionnaire, along with some elements from the Raging Nukem as the wee cherry on top. With that being said though, the Legionnaire build already had this core interaction involved, but it wasn't necessarily the focus of that build at the time. So this time around we decided to home in on that and bring it to the forefront due to how truly effective it's been throughout all of our previous field tests. So with the clip that's showing just now, there's a lot happening here, so allow me to break this down very slightly for you, just so you can see how it is actually working. Firstly, we have the Bloodletter class mod healing our shields, and that class mod has skill points focusing on the Phalanx Doctrine skill, which is currently giving us stacks of weapon damage and max shield capacity on regular enemy kills. We're also using the classic Cloning Banding Tracker Grenade that is consistently healing those shields. Next we have the Super Soldier Shield, which is currently giving us ammo regen, fire rate, movement speed, and a full damage immunity barrier on shield full. We also have the perfect action skill starter anointment on that shield that triggers any effect on shield fill. So what all of that means is you get Super Soldier buffed whenever your shield is healed, whenever our Phalanx stack expires, and when you activate your Iron Cup, which is insane when you think about just how much time you're actually spending being completely immune from any damage. And of course on the Cup itself we have bonus weapon damage, fuel efficiency, huge cooldown rate, and dual nuclear missiles for extra damage and crowd control. That was quite a lot thrown at you at once though, so allow me to go through the build in a little more detail now. Here I'm going to explain the most important changes from the original build templates, and these will be the core things that make this build tick. So starting off with those skill trees. In our green tree, Scrappy has been maxed, helping Moze out with overall speed and damage. As long as we're using dupe weapons on any action skill, we can never go wrong with Specialist Bear, putting an extra 60% damage on those nukes. We also needed redistribution for our first move into that sweet ammo regen, and then of course we had to build all the way down into Forge for that same reason. In the blue tree, to keep our healing source consistent, we always maxed out Pull the Holy Pin and Vampire. This is how we're able to keep Moze alive regardless of how much damage is sustained, out with the immunity barrier of course, and the healing itself would trigger the rest of the interaction involved. The only difference I've added here is that we've taken Auto Bear out of the build as it doesn't do anything for the Cup, and we've moved that same point into Deadlines just to give the Cup a little bit more fuel efficiency. For our orange tree, the Security Bear adds a pretty substantial 50% damage reduction on the Cup, which was needed in order to validate using the Cup itself. And for our final skill tree change, we have reduced Armoured Infantry by just 1 point and shifted that same point into really big guns, just to add a little more Cup damage. For the action skill slot themselves, we are doubling up on the nuclear missiles from the Raging Nukem build to take full advantage of Specialist Bear. Now we can get into the main drivers for this build, and that is our gear. For this we decided to utilise the Super Soldier Bloodletter interaction, playing unbelievably well with the Phalanx skill and the Bloodletter class itself. This was in fact the core interaction that I previously mentioned in the Cup Legionnaire build. These pieces of gear working together creates the entire interaction that drives pretty much everything that we're doing here. If you're not familiar with that interaction, allow me to explain a little bit more. So what happens here is that the Phalanx skill triggers one Phalanx Doctrine stack upon an enemy kill and gives us maximum shield capacity and gun damage per stack. Each stack lasts for 30 seconds and has no limit. With this in mind, we go over to the Bloodletter class mod itself, which actually shifts all of our healing sources into shields instead of health. So here, with every kill, my maximum shield capacity increases, and whenever I'm healing from my grenades with the Vampire skill, that bar is healing back up almost immediately. This particular interaction alone is personally guaranteed to keep you alive as long as you're throwing grenades. For this build as well, your grenades regenerate themselves based on critical hits, which is why you need Pull the Holy Pin, because that creates your critical hits for you. Now in amongst all of this, we can then throw in the Super Soldier Shield. As soon as your shield is full, you gain 50% fire rate, 5% ammo regen, 25% movement speed, and obviously the full immunity barrier for 5 seconds. Just as a side note here, those benefits do not stack, and when the barrier is triggered over another, the 5-second timer is refreshed. So with all of that combined, as soon as your shields are brought down from max and then healed, or when a Phalanx Doctrine stack applies and expires, you will constantly take advantage of all the Super Soldier benefits when those happen. And not only that, but we also have the Perfect Shield Anointment, which is on action skill start, activate any effects that would activate on shield break or fill. Simply put, this provides the Super Soldier benefits whenever you activate the cup, on top of every other triggered situation. Our grenade will pretty much always stay the same with the good old fashioned CMT. This is the absolute best grenade to heal with, simply because with one throw, your grenade splits into 2, and then those 2 split into 3 others, and those individual split grenades can bounce and detonate up to 3 times each. This means you can potentially hit your enemies up to 18 times, i.e. with 3 times per split grenade. And then for the cherry on top of the build, we have the Victory Rush artifact, which adds 18% more movement speed and weapon damage based on badass enemy kills. And this particular Victory Rush is also giving us 30% cooldown rate as one of its perks. So that is all of the gear, which is the very focus of the entire build. The weapons themselves, however, can be basically anything you want. I myself have chosen the Soul Render, the Flipper, the Plague Bearer, and the Boogeyman. The anointments that we chose also benefit the build, with the Soul Render providing more cooldown rate on kills. The Flipper is strong enough on its own, but on this it becomes even more powerful whenever your cub is active. The Boogeyman can pretty much stand by itself with the infamous consecutive hits anointment, which scales your damage the longer you fire. And our Plague Bearer provides a huge splash damage bonus on action skill end. For some alternatives, however, I can also recommend the No Pew Pew, which of course benefits the fire rate factor of the build. The Kib's Worth for damage, the Free Radical, was also suggested by someone on a previous video, so on that I will be using this on a future build indefinitely. We also have here the Light Show, which is an amazing alternative to the Flipper and can also react to the Cub activation. And of course we have the Back Burner as opposed to the Plague Bearer. This launcher can shoot a lot faster. It can also handle crowd control and massive splash damage to stationary or slow moving targets or groups. So with all of that out of the way, I'm just going to take a little bit more time here at the end just to give you guys a summarised checklist of what you will need in order to give this interaction a try yourself. Firstly, you will need the Bloodletter class mod, preferably with a Phalanx Doctrine at +4 or above. Next, you will need the Super Soldier Shield at literally any capacity. And for the anointment wise, you can either use the action skill start anointment that we previously mentioned, or you can actually go down the cooldown rate anointment route as well. That cooldown rate anointment could also be used for a Suicide Cub variant of this build as well. Next up, the Cloning Maddening Tracker, but I can also recommend the Ghast Call, any Hex Grenade mod, and any Purple Grenade mod that has the cloning or tracker name included. And lastly, you can also use literally any Victory Rush artifact, as they all have the same benefit, but as an alternative you can also use the good old fashioned Peril of Ineffable Knowledge to stack your damage up regardless of enemy type. This also goes extremely well with any consecutive hits anointment, as the damage on both scale up at the same time. So that is it from me for today, folks. It's been a tough ride the past few weeks trying to get this all together, but I sincerely hope you enjoy it. We are looking at a lot more videos to be uploaded this month, so stay tuned for those, and as always, we will see you in the next video. Bruce!